BTFD, buying the dip. I hope we all survived the bear market of Thanksgiving 2021. I think we all did since we're all here. So everyone's favorite Bitcoin skeptic turned Bitcoin hyperbull, Michael Saylor, announced that his company Microstrategy bought even more Bitcoin. So 7,000 Bitcoins for 414-ish million in cash during its fiscal fourth quarter. Side note, the former IB analyst in me is shaking at the idea of having to do a model with a November fiscal year end. They purchased that for roughly $59,000 of Bitcoin, which means that MicroStrategy now holds more than 121,000 Bitcoins, which is the steady march to 1% of total supply is coming up. I think the march is continuing. And in similar news, El Salvador also bought 100 more Bitcoin as the Salvadoran president literally tweeted that the country had purchased coins at a discount, which is kind of funny given they're paying market price. But my takeaway from all of this is that the firsts in the Bitcoin world are not capitulating. MicroStrategy was the first major non-crypto related public company, a lot of qualifiers there, to put Bitcoin on its balance sheet. And El Salvador was the first nation to adopt Bitcoin. And there might be something to be said here about an ego play from both Michael Saylor and Nayib Bukele. But the conviction is still there. And to that, speaking of conviction, I want to pick on my most convicted friend again. Naomi, what do you think?
So I just feel like these stories come out and it's like, oh, Michael Saylor got into more debt in his company to buy more Bitcoin. And it happened over and over again. Like, it was awesome when MicroStrategy first got involved. It's awesome that he has such conviction. It's such an interesting play for him because his company is so intrinsically tied to the value of Bitcoin at this point that it's hard to say it's anything other than a Bitcoin stock, because as soon as the price moves, the value of that company is just catapulted in either direction, which is an interesting move if you take into consideration the needs of shareholders and why they might have invested in this company in the first place. I'm sure they didn't anticipate that it would be so intrinsically tied to Bitcoin. But interesting point that you brought up about these, big first kind of movers getting into the space and they're not capitulating, and it's like I don't know. It's like you've got this guy who's like putting his company into so much debt to buy more and more Bitcoin. And then you've got this country that's mandating the use of Bitcoin. Like, I don't know. It's cool that El Salvador is buying Bitcoin. I'll grant them that. I really like that they're pushing Bitcoin forward. Obviously, I don't like the compulsion element of it. I think it could have been done voluntarily, but it is still cool to see Bitcoin start to flourish there. I just feel like this story is like, it's happened again. All right. Yeah. And it's going to happen again as well. I don't know. Zach probably has a better take on this than I do. These stories exhaust me. Like, do they exhaust you, Zach?
A little bit. Yeah. I think it is good to note the ever growing number of Bitcoins that to me are in the Scrooge McDuck vault, in which Michael Saylor jumps in headfirst every damn day. So for me, it's always good to note these. But yeah, at this point, it's not news. It's sort of just more procedural, right? It's like, okay, this really like moved the Bitcoin market significantly, late last year, right? And we're sort of have become inured to it a little bit. But it's certainly worth noting. And it's certainly worth noting that one company in Northern Virginia that previously had been a business services company is now, again, as George pointed out, marching its way toward owning 1% of the Bitcoin in circulation. So I think it's pretty interesting to see that this conviction, this obsession, this drive to hold more and more BTC does not appear to be waning from this company and from Michael Saylor specifically. So I don't know what more there is to say. I don't know at what point like the threshold gets such that it's not worth remarking anymore, but it's always fun to see that number go up, honestly. So I'll leave it there. George, you got any final thoughts?
I want Jen to give her final thought because I saw her hand a couple times.
All right, do it, Jen.
Thanks, George. Just like
I got you.
Thank you. It's actually a question for you. So every time I hear the El Salvador news, I get fearful over what is going to happen when we're in a bear market. And I talked about this on the show last week. And it's the same when I hear MicroStrategy news. They are buying debt. They are going into debt to buy Bitcoin. And given your background, like what's your take on MicroStrategy and El Salvador when we hit a bear market?
Yeah, it's an incredibly interesting thing that MicroStrategy in particular has convinced institutional investors to issue high yield junk bond debt in order to buy Bitcoins, because in that scenario, they're implicitly taking the credit risk there. So the fact that, these big institutions that give out bonds that yield 6% are giving them to MicroStrategy in order for them to buy Bitcoin is just absolutely crazy. I don't know if they really understand what would happen in a bear market, given how tied MicroStrategy's market cap is. It's scary. I don't really want to think about it.